Hello and welcome to Dinner with Hannibal, the weekly discussion of season 3 of Hannibal. I maybe we should change the name though. Instead of Dinner with Hannibal, we can call it Art Appreciation with Hannibal, because we've entered a new
No,
chapter.
no, art appreciation with Francis Dolarhyde because he's the one who's like appreciating the art.
That works. Maybe that's how I'll title this: Art Appreciation with Dolarhyde. Professor
What
Dolarhyde.
works of art have you appreciated today? Let's not do that.
So, I am your host for our talk today. I am the great Tyson Gifford, and I am joined by the William Rorig, clothed in sun. Going by the William Blake tradition here.
Nice.
So, first off, this is the first episode of Hannibal that ditches the cuisine, the foreign cuisine titling protocol or theme, I guess.
We're done with the cuisine titling. Now it's artwork.
Yeah, it seems to all be, looking ahead at some of the episode titles coming up, it seems to not only just be artwork, but it seems to be all named after the paintings in the Great Red Dragon series of paintings. And so this episode was the Great Red Dragon, which isn't a painting itself, it's a series of 4 paintings. And then next week's is next week and the week after, I'm not sure which is which, but one is and the woman clothed in sun, and the other is and the woman with the sun, or clothed with the sun. So one's in the sun and the other's with the sun. Then looking at the paintings, further ahead at the paintings, the next painting in the series is called And the Beast from the Sea, and the last one is called The Number of the Beast is 666. And that would put it, Hannibal, since this is episode 8, that would put it at 12 episodes, which sounds about right. So
yeah, Hannibal's usually third. That's it for this adaptation of Hannibal, which is sad.
Yeah.
Especially since the quality continues to stay very high. This episode is no exception. The quality has not dipped at all.
I have to say, I think that this is by far the worst episode of the season. That being said, it's much better than most other shows on TV. By saying the worst episode of the season, that's not exactly saying it's bad in any regard.
No.
That's saying it is amazing.
I'm interested in your opinion about what makes it the worst episode in the season, though.
I just think it's, as a setup episode, I'm just not as invested yet. In the new storyline that's going on. It's missing some of the artistry in the tableaus and stuff because it's a different kind of killer. But we also really didn't get that much of a viciousness out of it yet. So I feel like, I don't feel like this is a dip as in like, it's getting worse now. I feel it's like this is a necessary setup for what's going to continue to be more good episodes. So that's why it was good.
I thought like they spent a good amount of time focusing on the new killer, Francis Dolarhyde. I thought they did a real good job of making him appropriately creepy, and he actually doesn't even talk in this. He has no lines, which makes him even more creepy and mysterious. Yeah, he makes those sounds. Yeah, I was like, oh my god. So this guy is like totally whacked out, and I thought Richard Armitage did an amazing job.
Great physical performance. The way he'd kind of twitch and stuff, and
the way he moved, like he spasmed, it was all otherworldly. You know, this was you know, it was very otherworldly. His performance, I thought that was great. Um, I also love the scenes with Hannibal. Well, come on, any scene in the show with Mads Mikkelsen is a delight. Um,
It
but
was cool
I
seeing
really,
his memory palace come into play. Like even though he's in prison, in his head
yes,
he's having wine while sitting in his
yeah,
library. You know.
yeah. He's seeing his library in his head, his memory palace. Um, I loved his interactions with 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 the psychiatrist there, Doctor
Chilton.
Chilton. Yeah, that's right, Doctor Chilton. Especially since Chilton was trying to make Hannibal jealous by talking about the Tooth Fairy, and I really love the part where Hannibal had that had that dessert prepared for him, and talking about how it's. And Chilton asked him, "It's like, is this cow blood this time?" And he's like, "Oh yes." And he says, "What about the last time you made it?" And he says, "That was cow's blood in the derogatory sense." That also was a cow in the derogatory sense.
Yeah. You could just see
Like,
a little bit of horror under the surface, Sir Chilton there.
yeah.
We also got a Hannibal saying he referred to the Tooth Fairy, as they're calling the killer now. Well, first off, he said, what do you think about the Tooth Fairy? And he said, well, I think he doesn't like that name. And then he also said, referred to him as a shy boy.
Yeah, he's a shy boy. So the scenes, I mean, I know it was set up, I know it was like all mainly set up, but it was also good to me because the interactions with the characters, because of the characters are shuffled around and they're in like new situations, and
We had a
so
3-year time
they
skip.
have we have that time skip. So they have different interactions with each other, and these interactions themselves are like fascinating. When Jack comes back to recruit Will, and Will is tired, he is done with all of this. He has a family now. He has a life. He doesn't want to leave that to delve back into this madness, this world of madness. And Jack is coming to pull him back into it. And
That was
just
probably
that
the
scene,
coolest sequence of the episode was when Will was walking the house and
yeah,
checking out all the like he'd move the flashlight, and then like where the flashlight shined, you would see like the bodies like still
the
there.
way that scene is, yeah, that was like really cool. I love that. I mean, the artistry, the way they frame things in the show is just amazing. They always come up with new and inventive ways to do stuff, and that was one of them. That was something I've never seen in any other crime drama before. I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool. I thought typical typical Will Graham, after he investigates, he asks about the dog. He asks about what happened to the dog.
Jack's like,
I was
don't worry
like,
about the dog. And he's
yeah,
like, why
Jack's like,
wouldn't
don't
I?
worry about it. Why wouldn't I? It's like a typical Will Graham. He has like 100 dogs,
Yeah.
but he's always looking to save the next stray. uh, um, that was really cool. And of course, the end they had to end it up on such a teaser, which is when Will Graham finally confronts Hannibal for the first time in 3 years, because Will Graham senses that it's something he has to do. Nobody
Get
even
into the
asked
right
him to do it.
mindset to find Dolarhyde,
To
yeah.
get to find Dolarhyde, yeah. And I was like, of course they end it there, because that's the interaction that everybody wants to see.
It was
So that
a
has
great
me
meeting point
thinking,
though, with Will walking up and it's like in Hannibal's library and he's standing there in his suit, and then you cut to behind Hannibal and he's in his prison garb and
yeah, they're gonna do that a lot with Hannibal in his mind palace this season. I think you know, he's got Hannibal's gonna constantly be in his memory palace. Um, so yeah, I thought it was an excellent episode. I mean, I was very happy with it. Great introduction to the Red Dragon saga. Just seeing everybody shuffled around and seeing everybody like in their new situations was interesting enough for me.
just for anybody that didn't get it, I want to clarify that when I say it was the worst episode of the season, I think every episode of this season has been like an A plus, and this was like an A. I don't think of it as like this was a bad episode. No, not at all. This was a great episode. This is like on almost any other show on TV, this would be like the best episode of the series. But on
Yes,
Hannibal, it's the worst of the season so far.
it lacked it lacked the freaky imagery. There was no like really freaky piece of imagery in this episode.
There was no like elaborate crazy dream sequence or kaleidoscopic sex scene or
Kaleidoscopic or like corpses in the shape of hearts.
yeah,
Uh,
no like
getting out.
deep dialogue that just makes you like kind of takes you back and makes you go, oh, you know.
What's this? No, it was for an episode of Hannibal. It was pretty straightforward.
But it was needed. It's a setup episode, setting up kind of these events, showing you kind of where these characters are at this new point in their life and how much time's passed and what everyone's doing and who this new guy is, you know. And it's a setup episode, so I mean it's perfectly fine for that, you know. It's I didn't expect it to be as good as the last of the episodes, which were like the climax of like 2.5 seasons, you know. That's basically what this entire arc, this first arc of the season has been like the climax of the overarching story that's been going on for 2.5 seasons. So it's obviously not going to be there, you know. That's not to its detriment. It just you're not going to get that,
right.
You know?
And now we're at a point where Brian Fuller kind of has to stick with, you know, a preset story. Like, I don't think he has to rigidly stick with it, and I don't think he is in any way going to rigidly stick to the events of Red Dragon. But he's got to stick to at least the basic structure of it.
I think he's going to change a few things. I think he's going to substitute Freddie Lounge's position with Chilton. I think Chilton is going to take Freddie Lounge's place.
Like I say, he's going to play with elements, but there is a basic skeletal structure to the story that he has to adhere to. You know, basically, you know, he can't. I don't think he can go in and radically change anything. I don't know. Maybe he can. Maybe he is a renegade, and he is just going to say, "I'm going to do whatever I want with this story."
He seems pretty faithful to like the larger issues, you know. Like he might do them a little out of order, but he's pretty respectful of how he does them.
Right. I mean, so far this episode alone seems to be following the basic structure of the story. You know, you have Francis Dolarhyde. He's murdering these families. You got Will Graham. He's got a family now, just like in the book and in the movie. Will Graham gets pulled back into it to investigate these murders. Hannibal Lecter's in prison. Will Graham confronts Hannibal Lecter to get more insight into this killer. This is all stuff from the novel, from the 2 films that were made. I mean, so it seems he's following the basic structure of the story.
Yeah. Uh, there is one pretty big divergence, and this is like a this has to do with a promise that Brian Fuller, I guess, has made. I don't know if it's with in regards to his career as a whole or just on this project, that he isn't going to do rapes. And
Right.
a big part of Red Dragon was Dolarhyde was a sexual sadist, so he didn't just kill families, but his primary target in the family was the mother, who he would
Right.
sexually violate. And that was changed. Like they focused more on the family annihilation.
Right. Like I said, skeletal structure, details. He
Yeah,
is free to change. He is going to change details for sure. Um, the basic structure is not going to change, from what I can tell.
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops the same sense of kind of horror of that character without the sexual element of
Right. Right.
rapes that
Sexual
Dolarhyde
sadism.
would commit. Um, I mean, obviously, I don't have doubts that he'll be able to pull it off because he has in before. He's been able to pull off quite a bit. I'm interested to
he's
see
doing it.
how
So
he does it, because I can't just see him taking that element out and leaving it like that. I see it more as like him taking it out and then strengthening another part to compensate.
right. I mean, I think if Brian Fuller didn't have faith that he could do Dolarhyde without the sexual sadism, then I don't think he'd be doing it at all. He'd probably just do something else. So I feel Brian Fuller probably feels very confident that he can pull this off. And I guess we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, as it always is, to watch more Hannibal. Every new episode of Hannibal is an exciting prospect. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to talk about this week. I mean, it's like we
No, there
said, it's a
isn't. I
setup
mean,
episode. We got to see Dolarhyde, but we
it's
didn't have
a,
dialogue.
it's pretty. Yeah, he didn't have any dialogue. A lot of creepy though. I mean, they did a lot with his. To their credit, even with no dialogue, no words, they did a lot with his character, with introducing his character. Richard Armitage, fantastic performance there with just the way, just establishing the movements of the character. Just the way that he moved said so
Yeah,
much about that character.
very
That simple
physical.
dialogue probably couldn't even convey. Very physical performance. It was excellent and like just pure artistry, I would say. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty straightforward episode. There's not a lot to talk about. There's not a lot of layers. Not like the last episode we had, which there was tons to just delve in and talk about all the stuff going on all at once. This was a more linear episode where you got introduction to the killer. Where are they now with our main cast? The initial investigation into this killer's crimes, and then the reunion between Will and Hannibal. It's fairly straightforward.
Let's talk about what we have coming up, what we expect to see coming up, what still hasn't been resolved, what kind of things are lingering that still aren't unanswered. Just all of that kind of stuff. First, let's kind of go over some of the unanswered things. We have not seen what's up with Verger and her child, and what's happened with that and Alana. We got to see Alana, but this is 3 years later, so we don't.
I don't know if we're going to revisit that or that character. I mean, her child was dead. She doesn't have a child. Dead.
But she took Mason's sperm, remember?
Oh, that's right. She took major. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with that. We don't even know if we're going to revisit that, or maybe that was something that Brian Fuller was planning to visit in like season 4.
Yeah.
I believe I believe that there are a lot of stuff this season that were seeds for future seasons. That's probably one of them. I don't know how they're going to fit that into the Red Dragon arc. I mean, are we really going to cut to her and her child? In the middle. I don't see like room for that here.
Yeah, it doesn't really tie in a way that makes a lot of sense for this arc. I could see them doing
Right.
it, just kind of in an offhand way. Like, Alana can inform. She's already shown up in this episode, so she can inform kind of what's happening. Maybe not directly, maybe not. Maybe she doesn't like walk up to Will and say, "By the way, the Verger child is doing fine now." Like it could be something lighter than that. Like
I don't
Will
know.
might
Yeah, I
make some
know. Right.
crack about her new lifestyle or something, and she might make a comment about how she needs to get back or something. It might be done in some kind of subtle way where if you didn't follow what was going before, it just would seem like a kind of pointless banter, but would serve to answer something. I could see it being something like that, just because Fuller doesn't seem to leave a lot of loose ends. Like he does at like ends of seasons, but he doesn't. He seems to kind of like there were a lot of cliffhanger aspects of the last season going into this one, and he took his time answering them, but he answered them all pretty much.
You got to imagine though, if Hannibal had been canceled after season 2, what aspects of that would have been left unanswered?
Oh well, yeah, obviously.
What did he answer? Yeah.
I'm just
so it's not that
if he's going to answer these because there is still some of season 3 left.
I don't know. I don't know if he's. I don't know with the announcement of cancellation if he's had a chance. I mean, I pretty much by the time the cancellation was announced and said I have to figure that a lot of this stuff was already set in stone.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I just mean that he might have already planned to answer these questions beforehand.
Right, maybe. I'm thinking there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I was also thinking a lot of the stuff with Chio and Hannibal's past. They hinted at that. I really do believe they planned. I really do believe they planned to do more with that.
That would have been another season, though. I could see that as another season. That's right. I can't imagine them cutting into that in season 3.
No, definitely not. I was saying that those were definitely hits for another season. Those were seeds that he dropped for a season 4 and season 5. I mean, I remember reading an interview with Brian Fuller after the cancellation. Shortly after a cancellation, they were talking to him, and Brian Fuller said, as a movie, season 4 would have been one hell of a thriller. What he had planned for season 4, he said that would make an excellent thriller if it was a 2-hour movie. And I was like, oh man, I just don't know what we're missing out on, and it kills me there.
Yeah, so let's see. The other kind of loose end that was addressed in like a kind of quick, offhanded way, like what I expect we might get with Alana and Verger, is the whereabouts of Freddie Lowndes. We had a moment where somebody referred to a obnoxious redheaded woman that was pestering for a story.
They directly mentioned Freddie Lowndes in this episode, so she is definitely coming back. She is a part of the Red Dragon story.
But like I said before, I honestly think her role might be taken over. Her role in that story might be taken over by Chilton, because Chilton seems to be planning to write a book about the Tooth Fairy, and they referenced him referring to him as the Tooth Fairy, and Hannibal said to him that that's a name he wouldn't like, and kind of there's this kind of moment where you could see like Hannibal getting kind of annoyed with him and him kind of taunting Hannibal a little. And I could see that all playing together into going towards the point in which Chilton takes Freddie Lowndes' role as like the one that's abducted and tortured and killed by Dolarhyde.
I get where you're coming from, and that might be true, but they very deliberately, purposefully referenced Freddie Lowndes. So, I mean, they're not going to do that unless they're going to bring that character back.
I think she'll come back. I just think that the significant role she plays is going to be taken over by Chilton. I think she'll take on a different role.
Maybe. You could be correct in that assumption. But that's the other loose end that they brought up.
They have to do a bunch of stuff to Chilton, right? You know, every season they have to do something to fuck up Chilton.
Every season, yeah, right. I know they have to mess with him every season. Poor Chilton.
Season he lost a bunch of his intestines. Second season he was shot in the face.
Yeah. Third season, I don't know what the heck. Third season he's gonna die.
Pretty much. If he takes the Freddie Lowndes role from Red Dragon, then that's what I expect.
Right. That Francis Dolarhyde is going to kill him.
Yeah, he's going to, look what I've done. Do you see?
Yeah.
You see my great works. I think that kind of also goes with his with Fuller's kind of reluctance to use the sexual sadism and the rape aspect, and that Freddie Lowndes was originally a male character, has been switched to a female character, and that kind of control, like that interrogation moment, would kind of verge on that sexual sadist if it was between a man and a woman, you know?
Now that you mention that is interesting, because Fuller knew from the beginning he was going to adapt Red Dragon, and he knew that the character of Francis Dolarhyde was a sexual sadist, and that there was a big connection between him and Freddie Lowndes in the novels. So, and Freddie Lowndes is a male, so he must have realized that changing the gender of Freddie Lowndes also changed the dynamic, the upcoming dynamic between her and Francis Dolarhyde.
Which is a big part of why I think Chilton.
Right. So I'm just wondering what the intent was in gender switching that character in particular, knowing that going in.
There's probably. I bet he was setting up, like I said, Chilton to take over that role, and I bet he changed Freddie Lowndes' gender as a form of interplay between her and Will Graham, because there's like a bit of a tension between them in the first season.
That's true, there is.
And kind of her protective nature of Abigail Hobbs that kind of caused issues in the first and second season, and I think like all that kind of stuff, it had to kind of go with a gender change, like made it make more sense and work better. Whereas it would lead even more towards the kind of sexual sadist side if she was to continue her role in the actual Red Dragon story, which is a big part of why I think it's going to be Chilton instead of her. It's also Chilton's really grabbing a lot of kind of her spotlight as the one that like studies the crime and writes the book and that kind of stuff. Well, now we have Chilton wrote the book on Hannibal, and now Chilton's writing a book on Red Dragon, or the Tooth Fairy.
True.
So I really think that's what they're going to do with it.
That's what that seems to be the direction they're going. But they did name drop Freddie Lowndes. Freddie Lowndes is going to play a role in this story. I'm guessing a significant role, maybe not the same role.
I hope so. It'd be nice to see her again.
But yeah, that was a very deliberate reference. I mean, Hannibal usually isn't that deliberate. You know, that was kind of out of character for the show to do that, and that's just because Brian Fuller obviously wanted people to know, yes, this character is coming back.
Yeah, or just to basically like toy with the audience in the sense of saying like, yes, we didn't forget about Freddie Lounds. Yes, she scored this,
Yeah,
you know? Because we
yes.
haven't seen her
Uh,
since towards the end of the second season. She wasn't even in the last couple episodes, I don't think. The last we
you
saw
know
of
who
her
else?
was when what?
You know who else wasn't in any recent episodes of Hannibal that suddenly reappeared? The two forensic scientists on the FBI team who were there throughout all of season one and like I think the first half of season two, and then they just disappeared completely because the focus was taken off of the crime investigation aspect and
Yeah,
the
it was nice seeing
relationship
them
between
again
Will
too.
Graham and Hannibal aspect. Yeah, they popped up probably because we're now back on the crime investigation aspect of the series.
Makes me
It's
sad
almost like
about Beverly
season
all
one.
over though.
Oh, I know, right?
It's like,
It's
oh,
almost
that's
like
the one person that's missing.
it's almost like we went back to season one because we got these two guys back. We got the Will Graham,
The clock thing.
zoning out the clock thing, which we hadn't seen in a long ass time either. And this is like season one again in a way. It's kind of quaint. Um,
And it's set up again. It's set up, whereas we haven't seen Hannibal in setup mode in quite a while.
no, we haven't. Definitely not. Um, well, I'm 100% looking forward to next week. The way they ended it with Will confronting Hannibal. Um, I just, I'm just dying just to see their conversation. That's it. I mean, nothing else could happen in that episode, and I'd be like, yes, this is great. I'm eating it up. They
What
could
we
talk about like cookies. They could talk about their favorite cookie. I
what we've
don't
seen
care.
in like the Comic-Con trailer seems to show that both Will and Hannibal have like some kind of a upcoming vested interest in Dolarhyde, and are
Oh
both
yeah,
kind of like Will's trying to catch him. Hannibal is somehow getting in contact with him. It
right,
seems like that they're communicating directly, which is
right.
going to be interesting because you get into this kind of dynamic that we love with Hannibal, where we see like this chess game going on again, whereas like Dollarhide is the pieces, and Will and Hannibal are the players.
Well, Hannibal loves to do this, where he likes to. He did this in the first season, in the very first episode with the killer when they were closing in, and he called them. He called the killer, and he tipped him off to the FBI. Um, so Hannibal likes to get involved in these investigations in that kind of way by contacting the killer and tipping him off. And Hannibal is obviously going to do that again here. Also, the killer himself, Francis Dolarhyde, we see he has a fascination with Hannibal Lecter because he had that big scrapbook,
He's
which most of it
scrapbooking.
was he's
Murder and
scrapbooking.
scrapbooking, those are his
But
hobbies.
those are his hobbies. Most of it was about him and his crimes. And we saw the confirmation of what Hannibal said, that he doesn't like being called Tooth Fairy, when he grabbed that marker and he crossed out the words the Tooth Fairy.
Mm-hmm.
So Hannibal does not like that name. But we saw he had a lot about his crimes, but then we saw he also had news clippings and stuff about Hannibal Lecter and Hannibal Lecter's crimes.
Yeah.
So you can see that he is, if not inspired, he is fascinated by Dr. Lecter. So he has taken an interest in him too.
Yeah. So it's going to be cool to kind of see this chess match resume with Will and Hannibal
Yes.
that Will's been dreading and Hannibal's been setting up.
Will's been dreading and Hannibal has been anticipating. because the whole reason Hannibal is in prison is because he knows that Will Graham is going to come back to him eventually, and all he has to do is sit there and wait.
In his memory palace.
In his memory palace. Because that's what Hannibal said when he turned himself into the FBI. Hannibal said, I want to be, yeah, I want you to know where I am and where you can always find me.
Yeah, which was exactly what Will said in reverse. Just moments before to Hannibal.
Just moments before.
I don't want to know where you are. I don't want to know where to find you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean that pretty much brings us to an end. We've kind of talked about where we think it might be going moving forward, what we thought of the episode, what's still kind of, been unaddressed and how we think it might be addressed. So that pretty much brings us to an end here. So I'm just going to kind of close us off here and say, check out our coverage of Hannibal and all of your other favorite shows on TVEnthusiast.com. We appreciate people who check out our site, read our articles, leave a comment if you want. Let's keep the discussion alive. You can leave comments on the YouTube channel, on our website, in our forums, any other method you can think of. Send us carrier pigeons. Bill's a big fan of carrier pigeons.
Love them. Love them. I keep them as pets.
You've been communicating with Mike Tyson a lot, haven't you?
I have been.
So yeah, keep in contact with us and tell us what you want in our coverage as we continue to evolve and change to see what's going on next. What are we going to do for a video series next? So we did Game of Thrones. We're doing Hannibal now. We got 4 more weeks or so of Hannibal.
I don't know.
What are we going to cover next?
What is coming up next that is worthy of a video series? Because I mean, if we're going to do a video series, it's going to be something that I want to genuinely watch every week. Not just because I have to, because, I got to do this video now.
Yeah. Let's see. What do we got coming up towards the end of August, I guess? Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
We got Narcos, that new series coming to Netflix. It's got
Fear the Walking Dead is if I watch it and then I don't like it, then I'm like, but we crossed this video series, now I have to watch it.
Yeah. Let's see. Doctor Who's coming in September, but you don't watch that.
No.
Let's see. Gotham, September.
Oh my God! Don't make me do that.
We'll find something. We might if we can't find a specific series to talk about, we might just do some other kind of thing.
How about Arrow and bring Cat into it? That might be interesting.
Arrow is a little ways off, I think. I think that might be October, but that would probably be a good one to talk about. Because we're going to have both Flash and Arrow.
Yeah, we're going to have both Flash and Arrow. And we can bring Kat in on those ones, too, because she actively follows those shows. So that might be a good one to do.
Yeah. I mean, that would be fun.
Definitely.
So, that's it for us.
Figure it out.
Stay tuned and we'll figure out what we're doing with our next video. If you have any suggestions, let us know. We might just try something in the meantime between Hannibal and when Arrow and the Flash and all that stuff comes back. Maybe we'll just do kind of a series of other videos like we did the MCU chat and the DC TV. Maybe we'll do some other kind of stuff along those lines. And we'll just kind of have a few topics that we'll cover, and then we'll go into another actual show's coverage thing with Arrow or something.
Sounds good to me.
Right.
I like that idea.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Night.
Night.